Los Ticos, Costa Rica, the darlings, the Cinderella story of the 2014 World Cup, where they went to the quarterfinals and damn near almost got to the semis, save for a penalty shootout loss against the Netherlands. The same Costa Rica who topped a World Cup group in 2014 with 3 former world champions in Italy, Uruguay, and the Netherlands. The same Costa Rica that went undefeated that tournament, winning and tying all of their games. Certainly one of the biggest shocks in World Cup history. What's additionally amazing is that team was managed by one Luis Jorge Pinto, who managed Honduras during the 2018 World Cup qualifying phase and failed to get La H to the World Cup. But Costa Rica had only become the third CONCACAF team in the history of the World Cup to get to the quarterfinals, and the first time that they themselves have advanced past a World Cup group stage since Italia 1990, when they got to the round of 16. That was also Costa Rica's first ever World Cup, by the way. Costa Rica is the type of CONCACAF team that is usually always in the holy trinity of the region, that being of the USA, Mexico, and Costa Rica. They're always within the conversation of one of the 3 best sides from the CONCACAF Confederation. In recent World Cups, aka 21st century, they usually qualify, barring the disastrous campaign of 2010 when they missed out. But Costa Rica usually does not do very well in CONCACAF Gold Cups. Surprisingly enough, you would think in World Cups it's much stiffer competitions, more arduous of a road for Costa Rica, but in Gold Cups, Costa Rica have never won the continental title. They did get to the semifinals in the most recent edition in 2017, but it was their first semifinals appearance since 2003. And this coming from a side where in 2015, they exited in the quarterfinals just barely a year after getting to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. In 2018, I don't think Costa Rica is as good now as they were in 2014, and this is the opinion of many football analyzers. They're certainly an older squad. Players like Johnny Acosta are 34 years old. I believe Brian Ruiz is he cracking 30? Marco Urena, I know, is like 29. Rodney Wallace is 29. Guzman is 28. Even Azofeifa's 33. Christian Bolaños is 34. Celso Borges is 30. And these were the bulk of Costa Rica's stars that went to the quarters back in Brazil 2014. So it is an older squad, and there will be at least a call to attention of whether or not this will negatively impact their World Cup campaign for 2018. But it certainly leaves doubts in the mind over whether or not Costa Rica can repeat their performance and get back to a second consecutive quarterfinal. That seems increasingly unlikely at this point. And in 2018 World Cup qualifying, they kind of ended on a sort of dull note. Their last 2 home games, they dropped points to Mexico and Honduras, where in both editions they had to come from behind and find an equalizer against Mexico and Honduras. And the last match against Honduras at home, they found it through the header of Kendall Waston late on, I believe, in stoppage time. It was either Kendall Waston or Joel Campbell. So Costa Rica, they started off qualification amassing the maximum 6 out of 6 points, and they always stayed among the top 2 or 3 in CONCACAF for most of the qualifying season, but towards the end, they started to drop points in places where they really shouldn't have, as I mentioned, those last 2 games at home against an already qualified Mexico and an inferior Honduran team, which has long been their ally, their rival in the region. So This is a side that should not repeat the heroics of their previous World Cup appearance, but they are in a group with Brazil, Switzerland, and Serbia. A second-place finish is certainly, it's doable. This will be the third time in their history they've actually been paired with Brazil in a World Cup group. They were in the same group as Brazil in 1990. They advanced. 2002, they did not advance, but Brazil went on to win the World Cup. Now they are with Brazil again in 2014. So there's a little bit of history between Costa Rica and Brazil in World Cups. Now, the most famous player on this team, of course, is goalkeeper Keylor Navas, the three-time Champions League winner with Real Madrid, a world-class goalkeeper, one of the best in the world at the current moment, possibly the best individual CONCACAF player. So he will grab headlines in this tournament just because of his high status as playing in one of the top clubs in the world and the current champions of Europe. And it's important to note that this is the same stage, the World Cup, that put him on the map, that allowed him to be scouted by Real Madrid in 2014 in the first place. So if he can put in a game-saving performance in some of these games and take Costa Rica again to the latter stages of the tournament, he'll truly affirm himself in the annals of history among one of the great World Cup goalkeepers. He certainly does his country proud, and he does the region of CONCACAF proud in general, because to have a goalkeeper from the CONCACAF region play for the most successful club team of all time, that is a truly great honor. But I feel ultimately it's going to be up to him and the defense, which is anchored by Michael Umania, Kenner Gutierrez, Roy Miller. I'm trying to think who else is in there. Christian Gamboa, Johnny Acosta. So, can they do it again? Well, they probably will not get as far as the quarters, but in a group where their opponents may underestimate them, and because of the fact that I mentioned Switzerland are having goal-scoring difficulties, and they're coming up against a Serbian team that has really disappointed their fans whenever they get to the World Cup, as is the case with many Balkan nations in recent years. Costa Rica are in with a good shot of coming through the group. But if they come through the group, they get to the round of 16 against, say, a Germany, it's likely the end of the road there. But still, Costa Rica are that, how do I say? They are one of the most stubborn teams that I, as a U.S. fan, have observed. So take that for what it's worth. In my own experience of watching Costa Rica many, many times play against the U.S. men's national team, they're a tricky side to come up against. They're not easy to break down, and they make you fight for it.